I need to know right now is raise your hand. I do know, the people I know have a story are Mark, Ed Lewis, and I'll say that's all I remember right now. Who else? Okay, the Farleys have a story. Okay, who else has a story for today? You can do the theme or not. Bobby. Okay, got Bobby here. Let's see, our theme was hard to believe, but you don't have to do the theme. Let's see, oh, Thelma, I think Thelma did. Thelma, you're muted. You had a story today, didn't you? I think she does. She and I talked earlier.
I had to mute her. She was breathing into her telephone and it sounded like a rainstorm.
Oh, okay. All right, she does have one. All right, so thank you one and all, and you can still tell anybody else for a story today. All right, put on your listening ears. We are going into hard to believe. I'll call on my friend, thank you, Ed Lewis, for helping me get in today. And I did figure it out.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and mute everyone. Okay. Okay, here we go. Can you all hear me fine? You can hear me, Marion? Okay, great. All right, this is your lucky day, my friends, because I am going to share with you a medical breakthrough that I discovered at the mouth of the Amazon River in 1979. Now, this breakthrough is going to make you lots of money if you're ready to launch with me. So like those folks who were fortunate enough to invest in those little companies called Starbucks and Microsoft, you have the chance to join me today in forming a multinational, and it's probably really a multi-billion-dollar company. So to get you up to speed on how this all happened and formed, I need to take you back to 1979 when I planned a journey from Los Angeles with my girlfriend and her two daughters who were 5 and 7 to Chicago. And from Chicago, I was going to fly to Miami, and from Miami to the mouth of the Amazon River at Belém, Brazil. And then I was going to take boat hops, rafts, canoes, backpacking, some small plane hops, the entire length of the Amazon River, and then fly from Iquitos, Peru up to Bogota, Colombia, and meet my girlfriend. And together we were going to take a bus through Colombia, through Ecuador, a small plane hop into Lima, Peru, another plane hop to Cusco, Peru, where for 3 days we hiked the Inca Trail up to Machu Picchu, and then got on another train to Lake Titicaca, across the lake to La Paz, Bolivia by train. And we did that. It was a fantastic trip. There were many adventures, but I'm going to share with you the one adventure that launched this medical breakthrough that all of us are going to be able to become millionaires with. So the trip began from Los Angeles. Like I said, we stopped at the Grand Canyon. We went through hot springs in Mexico, and we were coming into Austin, Texas. We were going to go to some music venues. And all of a sudden, about 10 miles out of Austin, I experienced the most excruciating pains. I was going, oh, Carol, you've got to pull over. You got to get me to a hospital. Something's happening. I feel like I'm going to die. So she rushed me to the emergency room, and all I remember is being shot up with something, throwing up, and ending up in a hospital room. 8 hours later, this doctor came in, and he said, son, fortunately for me, you have a kidney stone. And we have not been able to birth a kidney stone for 1 full year. And you have the opportunity to do that now. I said, well, tell me about a kidney stone. So he gave me all the information. And he said that the way it works is they will give me a spinal tap. And then they'll run a tube up my urethra and run a wire with a little grappling hook on it. And they would reach in and grab the kidney stone and pull it out. No problem. He said, it's a 50% chance of it being successful. We could pop it right back up into your kidney and it could float around in there for 10 years, 5 years. It could come right back down and cause you the pain. And he said, the pain is really kind of like giving birth. And that's what it felt like. At least the pain felt extremely strong for me. So I was down in the operating room. And when they did that spinal tap, it felt like a shotgun. It just blasted my back. But then everything was numb. And 3 hours later, I came out into the hospital room. And the doctor said, sorry, my little friend Harold the Hook pushed your stone right back up into your kidney. I said, okay, so what am I going to do now? I am planning a trip in the Amazon River. I am not going to be around any medical facilities. And he said, well, let's wait a day. And if it falls back down in your urethra, then we can do this again. So I waited a day and it actually did come back down. We went down to the operating room and they couldn't give me a spinal tap, but they gave me an IV and I was just starting to go under when I heard the nurse yelling, stop the procedure, turn off the IV, the doctor can't get here. And this was 1979 when the United States had the oil embargo from the OPEC countries. And I don't know if you remember this yourself, but there were huge lines trying to get gas. And the doctor didn't have enough gas to get in from his suburb home in time for the operation. So they took me back up. The stone had come back up into my kidney, so I wasn't in pain anymore. The doctor came in. I said, okay, listen, I'm going to go to the Amazon. I'm going to stop this procedure. Hopefully nothing will happen. What would you recommend that I do if I get down there and have a problem? And he said, well, I'll give you some pain pills and then drink as much local beer or something you can that will hopefully flush out this kidney stone. So I flew down and I got into Belém, Brazil. And I had met this man from Nevada City on the plane flight down, and he owned a gold mine. And he offered me to stay in his house for the 10 days I was going to be in Belém in his mansion with 10 rooms. And he had 2 children. One was a Montessori preschool teacher. And I was working on my master's in early childhood education. So I got to go to a Montessori preschool in Brazil and teach some songs and have a great experience there. The younger son had worked as an actor and he was an amazing artist. And he invited me to an outdoor play in the local park. And they were doing a play to talk about the destruction of the rainforest, that lumber companies and mining operations were destroying the rainforest and the habitat for some of the native peoples. So we drank some beer and we had a little bit of nice stuff to smoke. And I was feeling pretty good until about halfway through and I doubled over with pain and I knew that kidney stone had dropped down again. So I drank a couple more beers. I had some more happy smoke and I went into the bathroom and I passed that kidney stone. And I had enough remembrance to at least grab the stone, because the doctor said, if you can pass the stone, bring it back so we can analyze it, wrap it up. And I did bring it back. Well, I continued that journey and I had an amazing experience throughout the entire time, Machu Picchu and all those things. When I got back to the United States, over the next 10 years, I passed 17 kidney stones with that method. Drinking beer, having some smoke. I didn't even need the painkillers. I could pass them when I came on in a couple hours. So this is the golden opportunity. With marijuana being legal in California and all these great craft beer places, I am going to form a company. I know a craft beer maker and a medical marijuana producer up in Grass Valley. So we're going to get together and form this company for kidney stones. So if you want to get in on this and become a multi-millionaire, join me next Saturday at the University of Beer in downtown Sacramento at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Unmute myself. All right, thank you so much. Let's give a jazz hand. Thank you to Ed so much. I'm going to tell the group who's next and next. I'm going to ask Thelma to tell second, Bobby third, Tom and Sandy fourth, and Mark fifth. Okay, so that's how we'll go. All right, Thelma, if you're ready, and she's unmuted. Good, she's on the phone, so listen up to Thelma. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm on the phone, everybody. So excuse the fact that you aren't going to see any wonderful motions by my arms and whatever, but I will try to express myself in voice.
Thank you.
My hard to believe story is simple. A few days ago, I was working on my computer and I was looking up actors and their filmographies on the computer. And I was looking up Edmund O'Brien, and I went down the list of movies and I came across Synanon. Synanon, there was a rush of memories. I was like a dam breaking in my head and gush. And it was back in 1971. I was working in the San Leandro post office. I was 25 years old. There were a lot of us young people that worked on that swing shift at 3 to 11:30 p.m. Some of us were dating each other and some were actually boy and girlfriend. Well, one night, a guy named Mike came over to me and asked me for a date. And I said, where would we be going? And he said, oh, I'd like to invite you to Synanon and participate in the game. Well, as a movie nut, I'd been, ever since I was a kid, I read everything about movies. So I knew, oh, that was a movie made about Synanon in the late 60s. But all I knew about it was, hey, that's a drug rehab and alcoholics, rehab place. And he said, no, it's more than that. And I want you to come and visit with me. And I said, I'm not an addict. And he said, I'm not an addict either. So he told me about Synanon. Synanon was more than just a rehab center. It was a community, a philosophy, number of people joining together based on life that would be based on sobriety, excuse me. And it was held together in part by the game. What do you mean game? You want me to play the game? Well, I want you to participate in the game with me, and I think you'd really enjoy it. And he told me more about Synanon. He said, Synanon, we'd be going to the one in Oakland at the Oakland Athletic Club, but there are two more, one in Tomales Bay and one down in Santa Monica. That's the first one that was started. And I said, well, let's see, how about Thursday? So we went to Oakland, and I came to the building, looked like any other building. This was going to be the most unusual date I'd ever gone on, and the building, hard to believe, just looked normal. And I went inside, and we went to a room like any other room, except there was a circle of chairs in it, and a lot of people already sitting in the chairs. We went and sat. He said, you sit on one side, and I'll sit on the other. I said, why? And he said, you'll understand later. So I sat down, and then I looked at the clock, and it said 7 o'clock, and then it came. It was unbelievable. I didn't realize he'd said something about it was a counter group, and this would be therapy that you had never seen before. It would be unparalleled in your past memory. It was more than that. It was an experience I was never to forget, at least that first time. People were going at it, screaming at each other, antagonistic moves with their hands, some standing up and other people saying, sit down, and swearing at each other in words that some of them I didn't even know what they meant. You have to know that by the age of 21, I still had never said any word beyond damn. I was told that was the worst possible bad word to use at home. Well, then I discovered the word fuck. And the whole post office went nuts, saying, oh, God, Thelma said fuck. Everybody was going, Thelma said fuck. And I didn't realize how everybody had thought I was so unusual because I didn't swear. Well, I was looking at people that looked like they were tigers tearing at flesh. Some people looked like they were, like they understood what was going on. Some people were able to fight back, and some people good, some people less. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and hearing. Luckily, the only person that said anything to me was Mike, and he said basically, why haven't you ever gone out with me before, and all that kind of thing. And I'm going, what? What are you talking about? This is private. This is not something you say. But some people filled in with, why didn't you ever date him, before and all that. And it went on like that until 2 hours had gone by. I didn't realize 2 hours had gone by until I really felt my body and the sweat on my face and how I was totally exhausted. But as I walked out, I was also a little bit exhilarated. And then I noticed all these people that have been swearing, that have been yelling at each other, the moment they passed the door, were totally polite to each other, were the friendliest people I'd ever seen. I was astonished. I was so astonished. I thought, we got to stay a while. And Mike said, yeah, we'll go over to the coffee bar. Earlier in the game, I had noticed this guy. He had been attacking his ex-girlfriend. And I mean attacking. He was not nice about it. And there were other people that were jumping all over her too. And then they started jumping all over him. And I was astounded that there was a part of me that was attracted to the guy. I found he was a volunteer that was heading up the coffee bar that night. We began to talk. And Mike began to talk, and I was listening less to Mike and more to Stuart. And in later days to come, I would come back to Synanon minus Mike to see Stuart. In a couple of weeks, we were living together. And I told my mother about it. I told everybody, even my dentist, that I was living together. And we also, in a couple of months, we moved to Alameda in a rented house, and twice he asked me to marry him. The second time I finally said yes. But he wanted to get married at Synanon. And I said, but that can't be a legal marriage. And but he said, I still want to get married at Synanon. And there was going to be a large group Synanon marriage. You see, they were really into marriage, and everything at Synanon was done big, and everybody was involved in it. Everybody was in everybody else's business, but in a nice way outside of the game, but in the game, not so nice. I said, okay, let's get married at Synanon, but still we have to have a legal marriage. And my parents were so excited. She's going to get married, and she wants to get married now. I didn't know what they were thinking about. I was that naive, but probably my mother was thinking about you know what. So therefore, let's get her married as quick as possible. And they said, okay, get married wherever, you know. But we still had to get legally married. You couldn't go on a computer then and get a license, you know, to immediately marry somebody. So one night, excitedly, Stuart comes in the door and says, we're going to Berkeley. And we went to Berkeley. And we went to the Suicide Prevention Center. And his minister friend ran the Suicide Prevention Center, and he was affiliated with the church next door. So in T-shirt and jeans, I officially married Stuart. A couple of weeks later, we were going to have the white dress and wedding cake wedding at Synanon. It was going to be officiated by Dan Sorkin, Stuart's idol and mentor. He was an ex-disc jockey, pretty famous in the Bay Area, and he was a non-addict, but he had chosen to live at Synanon, and he chose to marry us. And Stuart was so thrilled at this. And we got married. My white dress with flowers on it, hippie style with the flowers on the head. And my family was invited, some friends from Synanon, a few friends from outside. And then I handed the camera.
Time to wind up your story. Finish it up.
Okay, and then I gave him the camera. He didn't use it to film anything. We didn't go. We went to Synanon, played games for a long time, but then we fell away from Synanon. We got our house became yuppies, but Synanon. Hard to believe it was, with good intentions that had started way back in the 60s, it collapsed by the late 80s and early 90s. It was called a cult. It was called a fraud. It engaged in financial crimes and violence. The unviolent thing of the game was long gone. They had a crew that went out to defend Synanon. So if you wrote about it in a negative way, who knows what would happen to you? Like a snake in a mailbox box? That was another story.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, that was hard to believe. I remember, talk about Synanon. It was up and coming in those days that many of us were young up and coming, huh, Thelma? That's what we were.
It was sort of the blue-collar version of Scientology.
There you go. All right. So, Thelma, the people on the phone, you who are on the phone, the way you can mute yourself is put *6. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So Thelma and Karen, if you put *6, that will mute you. All right, okay, Bobby Kincaid is up. Tell us about It's Hard to Believe.
Well, it's not quite as dramatic as our last story with Thelma, and I knew a lady who went through whatever it was a long time ago. But anyway, I'm working on this thing about women in traditional male-dominant societies, and it's trailed into our society. And when I was a child, I read all these folk fairy tales about male dominance, and I didn't know it because they created the literature and gathered all the folk tales in the 12th through the 18th century. So as a child, I read these and I believed them.
Wait, unmute.
Okay.
There, thank you.
Sorry. Did you hear anything?
Yeah, everything except the last 2 sentences.
Okay, so this is at tailing in where I finally realized how I was hooked and what I believed was getting in my way. So this is a story I found. It's a Greek story, folktale, off the cusp of what the Greeks did. And it's got an inside story from that tells, anyway, let me start.
Yeah.
Theos he was a shepherd and he lived in the mountains of the Greeks, and he watched the sheep and he loved doing it. He loved gazing around, just kind of in a state of love. And one day he heard all this whimpering and whining, and he went up and he crawled up, and there was this teeniest dragon, and he couldn't believe it because all his life he wanted to have a dragon and raise it. So he got this little precious creature, and she tried to scratch him and everything, but he pet her and he calmed her down, and he took her down, and the sheep all withdrew. They were a little afraid. He said, no, we'll just feed her some food and give her some water and she'll just fly away. Well, of course, he fed her little bits of food and she drank some water, and then she clinged to his leg and she wouldn't let him go, and he said, okay, I'll take you back. There might be a little scruffus, but I'll take you back. So he got a hold of her and he took her down to the shepherd's camp, and they rose a fit. They said, this dragon will eat everything. It'll be horrible. She might even eat us. And they all said, no, I'll take her back as soon as she's ready to go. She should fly soon. Well, she got bigger. First they slept on his bed, then they slept on the floor, and then he slept in the cave. And pretty soon the men came to the father and they said, it has to go. It's too big, and you know the stories about dragons. Well, Theos loved that dragon, so what they decided to do was to drug both of them, and they drugged him and they drugged her, and they wrapped her up in a whole bunch of blankets and tied ropes around her, and they took her up way over the mountains. It took them a day and a half, way east. And in the meantime, Theos wakes up and his dragon is gone, and he's angry and he's mad, and he looks all over. He doesn't take care of his sheep. He looks in the caves and the valleys, and he's just very upset. Soon the men come back with the cart, and he notices the blankets and ropes in the cart, and he knew what they did. So he was angry for about 3 or 4 more years. He was becoming a young man, and finally his father said to him, and Theos said, yeah, it's time for me to get over it. He said, would you like to take this wool down to Arcadia and sell it? And Theos loved that because he could go to the market. And so he was on his way with some other shepherds when all of a sudden these thieves came out and took the wagon and was beating him up, and Theos was really hurt, and he kept yelling and screaming. Well, way over the mountains, his dragon heard him call, and in she came. She swept in. She beat those men up against the wall. She went and got the cart. She stood Theos up, and he could hardly stand. So she said to him, they could speak together in their minds, I'll take you back to my lair. So she gently picked him up and took him back way east. And in her lair, she had 3 eggs, and she sat on her eggs, and she said, Theos, there's a story about dragons that were mean and vicious. And one day a dragon told this man to watch the treasures, but especially not to eat this one egg or open this egg, because that was her very precious treasure. Well, when she left out to do her business, the man who was supposed to guard this opened the egg. Of course, she was spying, and she said to the man, you think we're evil, but what did you do? And she tossed him out. And from then on, these horrible stories about dragons started to appear. But Theos was more concerned. He says, well, how can you fly? You don't have any wings. She says, well, I'm an Eastern dragon. I have 2 nobles here that I fly with. And so she fed him, she gave him sweets, and he got better and better, and he watched her change her eggs. And her mate came in, but he was of a different color. And he says, well, you're brown and orange, but he's blue. And he says, there's different types of dragons. I'm an earth dragon. I live on the earth. I protect treasures. My husband's a sky dragon. They're the fire dragons that blow the fire. And then there's the heavenly dragons up top. They're golden, and they kind of take care of every one of us. And he was quite concerned and very interested in that. So she said, it's time for you to go back. So she picked him up just very gently, like she turned her eggs, and carried him home and put him on the edge. And he crawled down the edge, and he went to the village, and he said, "You won't believe I've been with my dragon." And she actually saved me, and she was friendly and kind and generous to us. And the father and the shepherds looked at him and they said, "Yes, we got the cart and the men back." And I've always wanted to have a dragon, but I actually really love this story because I changed her to a female because, of course, she was a male dragon. And you got the male and the female interacting and saving each other, as it should be. And that's my tale.
Thank you. So much. Hey, we learned about dragons today. Earth dragons, fire dragons, and heavenly dragons.
And there's water dragons. I forgot that.
That's okay.
Okay.
So, every day we learn. That's amazing. Hard to believe. Water dragons. All right. I will welcome, we have 2 more people who have come in. Vivian, I know Vivian, and let's see, somebody else came in. Oh, David McGaffey. Let's see. Vivian, can you unmute yourself? And David, just to tell us where you're from. Vivian, I already know.
Oh, I'm Vivian Fade from Brentwood, and I was thinking of the Dreamweavers for some reason. It took me a long time to get in, but I'm here. Anyway, I hope you're having a good time, and I've been learning all about Ruth Ozawa, who I've loved for years, the Japanese-American artist who had been in an internment camp. So I'm full of info on her. She's wonderful.
All right. Thank you for coming in. And we're going to meet David. Let's see. Where's David? Yeah, where are you from?
There. We don't seem to have an image. Don't know why.
Do you have a video you can click to start your video?
I'm trying to figure out what would do that.
Okay, you figure it out later. We can hear your voice. Just introduce yourself. Thank you.
All right. My name is David McGaffey. Yeah. I'm from Alameda, California. Linda passed me this link, so I'm a brand new member of SAC. This is my first swap meet. And but I've been a storyteller for the past 50 years or so.
All right. We welcome you with open arms.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that was David. And David, do you happen to have a story today?
Absolutely. Or is it positively? I get those 2 words mixed up.
Yeah, either one. We're going to have Mark tell next, and then it can be open to you after that.
All right.
So, all right. And welcome, David. Okay, let's hear from Mark from Auburn.
There it is. Hi.
Hi, Mark.
Let me get that off the screen. Okay, here we are. Hello, everybody. A story that you might find hard to believe and you might not. It's really up to you. Personally, I had never heard of a flying turtle until I discovered this story. And I don't know whether you have heard of flying turtles or not, but here's the story the way I heard it. There was this turtle, and he was living at the mouth of the river close to the beach. And he was walking along on his 4 little stubby little arms and legs sticking out of his shell, and he was walking along thinking about his mother. He was thinking about how long it had been since he and his mother had visited face to face. And of course, she lived way over there, over that sand dune and over that mountain, long ways away. And he was thinking, man, it would take me maybe 2 days to walk over there with my little tiny turtle legs, and probably 2 days to come back. But I sure wish I could visit my mother. And just about that time, he saw these 2 seagulls that were standing there on the beach talking, and the seagulls were just passing the time of day like seagulls do. And the turtle walked up to him without an introduction or a how do you do or an excuse me. And the turtle said, you guys are just the guys I'm looking for. You guys are just what I need because I know what I need to do and what you guys need to do. And here, let me tell you about it. And one of the seagulls looked to the other and said, he sure talks a lot, doesn't he? And the turtle said, wait, you haven't heard the story. You haven't heard the story. I got to visit my mother. My mother lives over there. You guys are strong. You could fly. So if we get a stick that's just the right length and just the right strength, you guys could each hold that stick with your webbed, really strong claws, and I could grab the middle with my turtle beak mouth, and you could fly me over to visit my mom in no time at all. What do you think about that? And the other seagull said, doesn't he ever shut up? And the seagulls flew off. Well, the turtle was used to that. A lot of times when he was talking to people, they just wander off, and he didn't, he'd kind of gotten used to that. So he was walking along a little further on his little stubby little legs and arms, and wouldn't you know it, just up ahead, there were those two seagulls. And those two seagulls had a stick that was just the right strength and just the right length, and they were holding it between their powerful webbed feet. And one of the seagulls says, we know you can't do this, but we just got to see for ourselves. And the turtle says, what do you mean I can't do this? Of course I can do this. I'm the one that can do this. I know I can do it. I'm the one that thought it. And the other seagull said, just shut up and grab the stick already. We know you can't keep quiet long enough to get to your mothers, but here we go. So the turtle grabs onto that stick with his really sharp little beak mouth, and he closed his eyes because, as you know, that turtle never been off the ground before. And this was really going to be something. So with his eyes closed and his beak shut around that stick, he heard some kind of flapping, and he felt some kind of breeze, and pretty soon the ground went away from under his feet, and he had this floating feeling, and it was amazing. And he finally opened his eyes, and he was flying, and he was so excited. I'm the first flying turtle there's ever been. I got this great idea. This is incredible. And they were flying over past the dune and on the way to the mountain. Well, the turtle looked down and he saw a village of people down there, and he wanted, worst thing in the world, somebody to notice him, the first flying turtle ever. And so he popped his little arm out of his shell and he waved it as they went over the people village, and nobody looked up. Well, on the way over to his mother's, there was another village of people, and this time when they flew over, he popped both of his arms and both of his legs and his tail even out of his shell, and he was waving everything as they went over the village, and none of the people looked up. Well, there was one last village on the way to his mother's place, and you know what he did when they went over. He was popping everything out of his shell and waving everything that he could. And there was a man down there that had been gardening, and he kind of stretched his back like gardeners do after they've been over, and he looked straight up and he saw what he saw. And he said, my goodness, isn't that something? A flying turtle. That's the first time I've ever seen anything like that. Those seagulls are sure smart to figure that out. Well, that was as much as the turtle could take. The last thing they heard him say was, it was my idea. That's the flying turtle.
Yes, that is great. I can hardly believe flying turtles. How about you? That was a wonderful telling. I've heard it, different versions of it. That was a delightful telling. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need to go. Tom and Sandy are actually next, David. So we have Tom and Sandy, and they are from Palo Alto. So we're going to invite them to unmute themselves. I'm looking over here. They are ready. Excellent. Tom and Sandy, thank you and welcome for being here.
Happy to be here.
Yes. Long ago, there was a trader who traveled the Silk Road from China to Persia and back. And he was traveling by himself, and there was a rise in the road, and he came over, and you could see an oasis far ahead, and you could see there was something going on there. There were two men and had ragged clothing beating up a third one, a merchant, obviously, by his dress. Well, our trader rushed ahead and got there and laid into the robbers and drove them off, rescued the merchant, and helped him sit up and dress his wounds a bit, and said, how did that happen?
Oh, it's a long story, but I thank you. Not very many people would have come to someone's aid as you did.
Oh, what else could I do? I would want anyone to do that for me.
Yes, probably you would. You're a kind person. But I want to show my thanks to you.
Well,
I don't have much. They took my money. Let me see what we can do here. Well, let's build a fire.
They built a fire. The traveler had some food with him, so they prepared a small supper, a little flask of wine to drink.
And they sat there and enjoyed the meal, and the stars came out, and they enjoyed the stars. And let me give you a little something to remember this evening with.
Oh.
And the man who had been attacked reached in the edge of the fire and got out a handful of gray ash from the fire. And he molded it, and it turned into like clay in his hands. And then he reached up into the sky and grabbed a couple of stars. And he reached into the sand and sprinkled some sand into it.
And when the traveler took that handful, it moved. It was soft and furry and warm, and he could tell that it was a kitten with long, smoky hair, the color of the fire, eyes as bright as the stars in the sky, and it reached out its little tongue and licked his finger. The tongue was the feel of the sand of the desert. Well, this is wonderful, said the traveler. Thank you.
And so was invented the Persian cat.
Very nice, writing down. Persian cat. Amazing and hard to believe. I didn't know that's where the Persian cats came from. We're learning so much today. Fabulous and interesting, very much so. Thank you. And I will say most of our listeners have not heard tandem telling before. So this is the special thing about Tom and Sandy as a couple. For all their many years, they do tandem stories, and they're just wonderful. Thank you for that. And now we're going to call on our new listener, David McAfee. But yeah, he says, you just found out about SAC? Welcome. And we can use experienced tellers, of which David tells us he is. What kind of audiences have you told to in your years, David?
Well, I have done everything from doing all of I've lived all over the world, and sometimes I would gather all of the children at the Embassy 4th of July and keep them out of parents' hairs for a few hours. Sometimes I would gather the ambassador and his counselors and tried to use a story to teach them a little bit more about the country we were in. I have been a church storyteller. I just tell stories. Of course, I grew up in an Irish family which was full of stories. But
now tell us about your story today.
Well, Tom and Sandy reminded me of a story I recall from ancient Persia. Probably just down the road from where their traveler stopped. There was a small town, and in this town there was a mullah, by the name of Nasruddin. Now, Mullah Nasruddin was well known to everyone in the town, and half of the town said that he was a very wise man, and the other half of the town said he was an utter fool. And you know what? All of them were right. Well, one day, Mullah Nasruddin was seated by the side of the road, and a traveler came along with a big walking stick, trudging along, and he saw the mullah, and he stopped in front of the mullah, and he said, "Mullah, am I going in the right direction to reach Damascus?" The mullah said nothing. The man said, "Excuse me, don't be rude. Am I going in the right direction to reach Damascus?" The mullah said nothing. And the man said, "Are you deaf? Are you dumb? Are you a fool? Tell me if I am going in the right direction to reach Damascus." By this time, he was so angry that when the mullah said nothing, he picked up his stick and swung it and smashed Mullah's head. And Mullah said nothing, which made him even more angry. And he hit him again and again and again until Mullah was stretched out on the ground, bleeding from every extremity. And the man said, "Ugh," and turned and walked away. And Mullah raised one finger and said, "Yes, you are going in the right direction to reach Damascus." He came back and he looked at the mullah and he said, "What kind of a person are you? Why didn't you answer me before? Why did you let me get so angry?" And the mullah said, "When you asked before, you were standing in front of me and not going in any direction." The wise fool.
The wise fool. Let us not be such ourselves. Okay, thank you so much. Big hand to everybody. I'm going to gallery so I see everybody. Oh, and Linda Walls is here. That's the other Linda we have. Did you sneak in? No, she'd been here. Okay. Anybody else with a story? We're doing good so much. So I will tell you about next month for Delta Wordweavers. Well, let's see, I'm looking at the calendar. Okay, I'll go in order. So before then is on the 19th of August is a Wednesday, and I'm going to ask Ed Lewis, because he's in charge of this SAC event, to tell us what we should definitely come to on Zoom on August 19th. Ed?
So the Storytelling Association of California, SAC, which all of you should try to become members of, we are starting a new event called Genre Storytelling. And if you are a SAC member and belong to a storytelling swap group, we are encouraging all the swap groups of California to send a representative to be one of our genre storytellers. And we have 6 storytellers, and we ask for donations, but it's a free event, but you can donate. And you register online. You just go to the Storytelling Association of California website and find out how to go online. And then we will have 6 storytellers, and our first genre is personal stories. So we have 6 storytellers from 6 different swap groups around California, and they will tell on that particular theme any story that fits that. And then we were doing this every month. The next month on Wednesday is the third Wednesday of every month, that from 7 to 8:30, 7:30 to 9. And we will have folk tales at that point. And following that in October are spooky tales. And following that, we're going to go through all kinds of genres, tall tales, myths, everything. So go online and check that out, and please attend.
Hey,
Let your swap group know if you have a story that would fit the particular genre. And people who organize your swap group should be sending information out to you about the event and how to log on. So if you're in a swap group, I know Marion will send around to all of her membership.
Yeah, I'll send to my membership, and if somebody's not getting it, they can, if you're not on anything or just don't know quite how to connect, go to Storytelling Association of California, their website, because they will have the announcement there.
And
So-
any donations that we get will go to the tellers. We'll divide them up by the 6 tellers. They'll just get all the money that happens to come in for anyone who donates.
Claire.
Yes, do you have to go to your group and get them to nominate you, or
Yes.
a group?
Yes.
All right. So you can't just say, I want to be on the list.
Right. The idea is to support swap groups, and you have to be a member of the Storytelling Association of California. So and it's something that everyone should be involved with if you're in the storytelling community, because it's a huge resource. It's only $30 a year for membership. There's all kinds of events. You get discounts and all kinds of things. So
Yeah, you're speaking to the choir here.
yeah.
That's great. So that's coming up. And then the Wordweavers is on September 13th. And my next suggested theme is animal antics. I've already got a couple tellers, and the folk tales that really lead on, like that flying turtle, that sure was an animal antic. And but maybe you have an animal who did something crazy one day. Tell us about it. So look forward to September with Animal Antics and Delta Wordweavers on September 13th, Sunday at 2. All this is re-announced on the Storytelling Association of California website if you're not in direct contact with a swap leader. Okay, we're going to close out for any other comments or announcements coming up.
Oh, I do. Vivian.
Vivian. Hi, Vivian.
Hi. No, I was going to do a quick, if you had a couple of minutes, I'd just turn it into a story about Ruth Ozawa, who was in a Japanese internment camp. But the other thing I wanted to do, I just put it on chat, to register for the Toastmasters International Convention. I've spent hundreds of dollars on this to go. This year it was scheduled to be in Paris. It's postponed until next August 2021. But this year, August 24th through the 26th, it is free, and about 10,000 people have already signed up. But they have a wonderful program.
Wow.
And so if you've never had that experience, and you know, they do have a storytelling book, and they had interpretive reading. And then, in fact, I won a tall trophy once I left leadership, and won doing Garrison Keillor at Casey at the Bat. I just totally flabbergasted people because it was so out of, my professional demeanor. So I just share that with you because it's coming up very quickly.
Thank you. So tell us about the story you have for today.
Oh, with Ruth Ozawa. Okay, if you can imagine, when I was a little girl, my uncle was in the Flying Tigers, and he came back. He was on the front page of the Oakland Post, and hero. And I was with him, and I was just a little tot, and he put his cap on me. And then I'd hear these words like, oh, the Japs, and he just used these words so loosely. And I'm thinking, my gosh, it's horrible to talk that way, But anyway, so now there's a woman that took the old cotton mills in Alabama, and then turned them to just really beautiful craftsmanship. She had a link today that was to Ruth Ozawa, and right away, because I love her sculptures at the DeYoung Museum years ago, it was at the Oakland Museum, and once the Apple Store in San Francisco, Hyatt on Union Square, they wanted to destroy this sculpture that has been beloved for so many years right by the Apple Store because they thought it was a distraction. I couldn't believe this. So here I am going here making copious notes because I want to share with somebody. So thank you for this. And then what happened, she was then she had an opportunity, she won a scholarship to go to Black Mountain College I forget where that is, North Carolina. And so there she meets Joseph Albers, and she meets Cunningham, and she meets some of these really forefront people that we've known. And then Imogen Cunningham told her when she married early, don't give up your maiden name. And so that was one little thing that survived. Well, anyway, she just started right away. Within 9 years, they had 6 children, biracial marriage. And so here she's working at home, giving her kids these wonderful art experiences. And she has such a great passion for it. Then she creates this school, first high school in California for the arts, a public high school for the arts. Then it goes into 50 high schools for the arts, all free. And then, of course, there was a school that was named, and then it turned to honor her as the Ruth Ozawa High School for the Public Arts. So anyway, I was just learning about this, and I just share this with you because we're surrounded by arts. That's one of the first things we want to cut through, and yet look at the richness that we have. And if I don't know if I can find this wonderful quote, but anyway, she was talking about if you give children an opportunity to work with nature, with her background as a farmer, that if you just go and be with nature, to open up and touch the soil and to experience these wonderful things with nature, maybe plant some vegetables. And as you're doing this, it just opens up your world to see so much more broadly. And so with that, I just put in a plug with passion for us to think about this. Sometimes we love the storytelling, our ego is out there and we get a moment of grace. But for us to think about the passion to encourage the arts in our environment where we're having all this rage going on, this chaos, and our health and global and bombings going off in one of the most beautiful areas, Beirut. The storytelling with flying turtles, just think how that flying turtle and people from the Silk Road, they can just go all over the world with their magic, and for us to create that magic for others as well as it's within ourselves. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Now your picture is, you're like in the dark.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. It's the backlight, and I have to get, should I get one of those little things to plug on my computer where the light faces me?
Yeah, the little ring light. I'm going to try and get one of those too.
I saw it advertised. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
I love your treasures in the background. You just have a wealth of treasures.
My treasury back there. All right, I just put on the chat my own Delta Wordweavers at att.net. So anything that we've talked about, if you need to catch up on the date, time, place, and want to get a hold of me, Marion, then there's my email to connect with that, because we don't want to lose anybody. We're glad you're here. Invite more friends, and SAC has a ton of things happening, so go to their website. And their newsletter's coming out real soon. It's like 12 pages long. It's chock full of story stuff. So
and
how do
we get the newsletter?
You go to the website for Storytelling Association of California, Ed already talked about it. And it's also on the chat. There it is. He put it on the chat.
Got it. I was just wanting to get the words.
Yeah, there it is. So thank you so much. Any last comments, Ed?
Yeah, SAC is also exploring two other really amazing events. One is paired storytelling, where people get together. We have three pairs of two each, and the two people get together. One's going to tell a folk tale, one's going to tell a personal story. So two people get together, and they have to decide on the topic and the story that can fit into that. And so that's on the SAC website. And so we'll have 6 storytellers with 3 different themes. And then coming up in the near future, they're organizing this right now, is they're doing paired storytelling, but they're taking social justice issues. So they're going to start off with, I'm not exactly sure of all the details of this yet, but they're going to start off with a Caucasian storyteller and a Black storyteller, and they are going to work together to get some theme around social justice. And then that's going to be the first time. And then they're going to cover all kinds of social justice issues with paired storytellers. So there's a lot of exciting things happening through SAC.
That's
go on
very
their website
exciting.
and you'll see all that information.
And in November, we've paired by geography. Let's see, 4 Northern California swaps have already paired, just made them a couple of days ago, with Southern California. So when November comes, there's going to be 4 joint celebrations. That's what I'm calling it. You find all about that on the SAC website. So that's enough announcements.
Did we get paired? I haven't heard anything back about that. And I sent in stuff 2 different times.
Okay, I'll connect with you privately on phone or email. So I can talk with you. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'll connect with Tom and Sandy for that. And any other comments? We appreciate everyone has come.
Thank you, Marion.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.